I also think you were probably loud enough.
Hang on for just a minute.
But today, do that.
All right, and we are live.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's 4:30 in the afternoon, Wednesday, May 5th. Going to call the Public Works Committee of the City of Isle of Palms meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. All committee members are present, and I will entertain a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes of April 12th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
No, second.
Any additions, deletions, or comments, notes? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 3 is citizen comments. We have no citizen comments. We'll go straight to department report, Director Pitts.
Good afternoon. I'll start with my garbage report. You can see garbage is back to normal. Last year was the height of the pandemic, so I think we're back to normal. Yard debris, we are still elevated there from our normal historical pattern, but coming back in line to some degree. For the month of April, we had 58 tons of the miscellaneous or C&D, which was a little bit on the high side still. And in the month of April, you can see the vehicle maintenance only had the 2 PMs for 2 different vehicles. $11,000 left. I will tell you, unfortunately, I think I'm going to be over. I've had 2 vehicles go down this month with that are in the shop with some major issues. So we're going to probably be over $6,000 or $8,000 total, which it's just things happen. One was a rear end. So I got to, that's a huge expense with a hydraulic pump and a rear end with the PTO. But it is what it is. Other than that, if you got any questions about my dashboard, other than that, I'm gonna let Robert have it for this section.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert.
Tag team.
Good afternoon. And we'll start with drainage. We have Charleston County out on 25th Avenue repairing separated drain pipes. This is the second part of a project that they did a little over a year ago. So that's underway. They're started actually today. We've been working on, which will come up later, drainage plan and RFP for 34th and Hartnett Boulevard. We also have Edie's services out on, they were out on the 23rd Avenue ditch cleaning that up, and they were also on a ditch on Forest Trail doing the routine maintenance. We also have Edie's coming out and doing a comprehensive cleaning of the Forest Trail drainage culverts that will be connecting where all the new pipes went in and kind of going from point A to point B all the way down to where we are on Waterway. So that'll be cleaning the complete system. For facilities, we've had a temporary help still painting up on Front Beach, some of the white fencing we have. We had some major irrigation wire breaks at Front Beach. They've been corrected and all that's working. We just had the PM service for this City Hall generator done. Historically, this has been tricky because nobody would service it because it needed a platform around it. I found somebody who would service it. It just got finished about 10 minutes ago. So that's all square for the upcoming season. upstairs air conditioning failed on the conference room side, so we've had that replaced, and that is almost complete. We also had some roof repair at Fire Station 2, and then we had the city's annual backflow testing also. We installed ROC back at the Carmen R. Bunch Park golf cart path again. We've had painters painting all the street signs down on Front Beach between 10th and 14th on Ocean Boulevard. Staff has installed new Ocean and JC Long signs along with 14th that were missing. And then we also worked, did a design around one of the palm trees so that could go out, landscape design to clean up those palm trees around Front Beach so that the landscapers could see it, and they're going to put in bids for that. And then we also had to repair the pump in the parking lot for the irrigation to keep some of that dust down. We also had the start of Pleasant Places cutting the right of way for, well, in between, DOT's parking plan, in between all the parking bumpers. So that was on the first time they did that was last week. Took them a little longer than what they thought, but they managed to cut all those spaces. Also, DOT was out to repair a sinkhole on 41st. That sinkhole has reappeared again, so they've been notified, and they're going to work to correct that. While they were down, I physically handed them a inventory of some of the DOT streets that needed repair, and you can see around the city that they did. Some were down on 7th, 6th, and even on the right, the shoulder on the creek side heading towards Breach Inlet. And then just basic routine maintenance with the compactors and dumpsters, and that's about it.
Very thorough.
Yes. Any
Very
questions?
thorough. What going on?
Busy.
Yes.
Mr.
yes.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
make a comment and ask a question, Robert.
Sure.
The sinkhole at 41st, of course, they filled it in right away when SEDOT was out here for
Yes.
a solid week and a half or whatever. But it washed out so quickly again. I can't help but think that that was just a quick fix. They did that
Yes,
first time around.
I think what they put in the ROC in that hole, but then it was right after that next rain. So there's something undermining it. And I've reached out to them through email, and they said they will come out and correct it.
And that's really right across from that, the three-way stop, but that other sinkhole that we historically have had over there that they fixed again, last year?
Yes, I believe.
I wonder
so.
if, I guess that's all tied in.
Yeah, so I think the drop inlet, I think Donnie and I talked about it. There's one up above that one, but I think it also crosses over and then comes down. So from my maps, it looks like that pipe is running right where that sinkhole is. There might have even been a drop inlet there before that sidewalk was put in. And that may be where, because there actually is a cutout under that sidewalk to let water through. So something they did in there isn't correct, but they've been notified. So, and we've got that safety fencing around it for.
Right,
now,
yeah,
so we're
appreciate
pretty
that
good,
because
yeah.
that really helps. If that thing's in such a location, it'd be
Yeah,
very
especially-
easy to step off and it's
Exactly.
deep. It's very deep.
Well, many years ago, right down the street where the marina is, as we all know, was the city dump in the landfill. And so who knows what's underneath there or not?
Yeah,
That's
right.
a problem. It's, it
Oh,
could be
yeah.
organic material that's
Right.
just,
Decaying,
decaying
Yeah.
away. And we might have surprises down there
sure.
for a long time to come. And then they just came up the street, and could be that, who knows?
Mhm.
But okay, very good.
Great,
Yes,
thank you.
go
Yeah, a
ahead.
couple, one was, well, at Forest Trail, I know it seems like the ditches have almost like doubled in size with erosion in terms of the width of them. I mean, do you guys keep track of that kind of
I think that
measurement?
discussion's gonna be coming up in a little bit as far as erosion
We are going to talk
control.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other is, I'm not sure if you guys keep up with this or hear about this, but at the island rat population, you mentioned the rodent infestation at the public
Well,
safety
it was-
building.
Yeah, so there was, I don't know if it was an infestation. There was two, they may have come in when the building was opened up. I'm not sure, but
Well,
yeah.
I've been, just in conversations and our own personal experiences that it seems like maybe there's an uptick in the rat population on the island. Has anybody else like picked up on numbers wise, or maybe it's just because it's gotten personal for us?
Yeah. I think everybody's got some sort of
Yeah.
rat issue
Okay.
on the island. I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
I didn't know if maybe we've gotten too successful and with the coyote
Yeah,
population
right.
and we're seeing it on the other side. So, all right, thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, we're moving on to old business and I'll get Douglas to help us with this. So first item is update of phase 3 drainage project. Small internal project on Waterway Boulevard Waterway Boulevard path elevation project.
So I really don't have anything on the path elevation. If,
Okay,
I think that we're kind of in a holding pattern there unless you will tell us otherwise. It's kind
right.
of was
Okay.
my takeaway from that.
Yeah,
Go-
I
go
had a
ahead.
question just about, we tossed around the possibility of trying to look at lighting options. Now that we've resolved that we're going ahead and going forward with the elevation and all of that. And so I don't know if that's something that we can put to Thomas and Hutton, or Ron, and you and I had discussed that possibility before.
Sorry. I'm just gonna take this for a second. Yeah, we did discuss potentially adding lighting into the path when the final designs are put forward for that, and that will be considered as we move through the process.
Okay.
Certainly.
Great.
So don't really have much more on the path. On the internal projects, we have been held up at 32nd Avenue. They discovered some phone lines that they thought they could get around that they couldn't. So we've been waiting on AT&T to shift those lines, which they've just done this week. So they are, and they may have finished it today, but they're on 32nd. They're getting that part of the job finished. That leaves a kind of the last major component for this project is going to be their work at 41st Avenue. We're getting a little anxious about timing of that. We're also getting a little anxious about the size of the excavation and the potential impact to traffic. So we're asking if Gulfstream could consider doing that work at night to speed it along. So we're in negotiations about that, about how they're gonna tackle that. We were hoping that this would be done prior to really getting busy at the marina, but it's starting to get closer and closer to that date. So there is a conflict with going right to it. So they're still probably 2 weeks or so away from starting at 41st and Waterway. But we're moving forward, and we're going to have a little bit of issue there, but we'll deal with it as best we can. Trying to minimize, the impact to traffic as best we can.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if we do the work at night, what impact would that have on light, noise, that sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, it would be lit up and noisy. It would be, and I don't know, to the extent of it would be, they're kind of backhoes running,
Right.
and they cannot, we always ask them if they can muffle or turn off the backups beepers when they're working at night, which they just can't. So there'll be a trade-off there in terms of getting the work done quickly, and the noise at that intersection. I don't think there's too many houses right there that would be impacted at night. I don't think it would be so loud that it would impact you, a football field away.
Mhm.
But I think if you lived in kind of that first house at Intercoastal Court, it could potentially be concerned.
Go ahead.
And is extra cost to us if we do it at night?
We are hoping that we will not have that. Typically night work does include some cost. We are actually getting put in this situation though, because they're kind of bumping up against the end of their time frame on our contract. So, we're going to try to work through that without there being any extra cost to the city.
I think that house at #1 Intercoastal is vacant at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they will, if we do that, we will go and make them aware. Sometimes there's nobody there or they're fine, they don't have any concern.
yeah.
So we'll work through that to try to be as not disruptive to that neighborhood as we can.
Very good. So these small internal projects, that includes Sparrow, right?
Cross,
And
wait,
Sparrow.
there's not one actually is there one on Sparrow? Oh, yeah, that's right. It does connect across Sparrow. That's correct. Yes, that one is done.
Oh, good.
They need to still stabilize the soil. They're gonna go back and put grasses in. So that part of there's still some minor work to be done. But the bulk of that work is done on Sparrow.
Very good.
Yeah, great.
Okay, well, I got you. How about item B, update on island-wide drainage master plan?
You have phase 3 drainage to do an update?
That was it. That was
That was
phase
it.
3.
That was it.
Yep. So on the island-wide drainage master planning, we did have, we had a mandatory pre-proposal meeting. There were 5 or 6 firms that participated in that. So we at least know that, and they were kind of the folks that we would anticipate being there. Stantec, Thomas and Hutton, David Stevens, Davis and Floyd, kind of the major folks who we knew would be interested. So there's interest there. Those proposals are due, they're due at the beginning of June. The plan there is we would handle this in a similar fashion to how we hired for the outfall project, whereby the planning commission reviews the proposals, and really the proposals for this stage is going to be their qualifications, similar product, who would be working on it, how they would tackle the project. So they would go through a series of interviews. And then the planning commission basically grades those interviewees according to how they think they would best meet the scope of work and the work experience, how those align. Once they have kind of a top responder, they would then get basically pricing, an estimate of pricing. These professional services are a little bit different than just a low bid situation. And then the planning commission would ultimately make a recommendation to this body. You all would typically get the same, kind of top couple of respondents. If you wanted to have an additional interview, you could do that. And then the expectation would be that you all would recommend to full council. So that's how we traditionally how we've done these larger scale professional service projects. And so we would expect to do this one the same.
Right. Very good. So it's not necessarily the lowest bid.
No.
Not necessarily.
No, it's the most qualified, then we will get their pricing and we will hope that their pricing is, roughly what we have in our budget.
I read something the other day, they're talking to this astronaut. And he said that, somebody asked him what his main thought was coming back re-entry. And he said, I'm riding in this machine that was bid to the lowest bidder.
Built by the lowest bidder, yeah. A little concerning at times.
Douglas, did I hear you correctly that you sort of hand selected the professional services companies to contact them and
We
reach
did,
out to them?
we broadcast the requests
Right.
out to the open. We did send basically anybody that has responded previously, we sent them directly this request. So we do know that, the 5 or 6 that showed up, they got it, they knew to show up by virtue of receiving this request
Right.
in their mailbox. But it's widely advertised in accordance with the procurement requirements.
And they're all pretty well known as being really good at what they do.
Yes, all of them do this type of work. This is
Yeah.
kind of their bread and butter. So, I think they'll have different,
We'll know the
Take-
names.
yeah, you'll know
We'll
the names.
definitely know.
Yeah.
The names.
You will.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, well, get an update from Councilmember Smith on the creation of Environmental Advisory Committee. Do you have any in your report?
Well, I'd love to see this move along and, we can go through this outline and maybe tweak it and then have something to suggest for council. So I believe we have to go through a couple of ordinance readings on it to get it going. So, what, looking back at the outline for this would be a mission for an environmental advisory committee that would advise council on matters of environmental impact, protections, conservation, and sustainability by exploring innovations, best practices, and data around changes. The committee would address matters as requested by city council and city council's committees, for example, Public Works, but as well as the other committees that we have, because these issues actually can touch any of them. But on its own accord, could also take up issues and initiatives that fit within the mission with regular reporting to the council. So I think that's key. This would be, as the name suggests, advisory to the council, and with goals that would include, as listed, protecting the environment, endangered species, natural resources, reducing litter and pollution, energy conservation, environmental messaging and branding to promote best practices, supporting Isle of Palms as a strong leader in South Carolina and a model for other coastal communities, and developing and supporting partnerships with related community groups, for example, our turtle team. That instead of meeting every month, they have 6 meetings a year, maybe every other month as a goal. And that would help, in case you, instead of quarterly, where if you miss one meeting, you could really lose momentum. Membership, 7 members, 3-year terms staggered. So you have, people rolling off. I think that staff can set that up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Selected by the personnel committee at the same time of the year. Well, typically at the same time of the year of other citizen committee appointments. Depending on where we fall with this year, maybe we could start it earlier than the end of the year. Consider, and I'm open to hearing from you guys, whether we want to have a member of Public Works Committee as a liaison, non-voting member on the advisory council, or just a member of council as a liaison, so that there's, especially in that beginning stage, some direction and connection with between city council and the advisory committee. And otherwise, just looking for applicants that have either related expertise or engagement, professional or volunteer. So.
Comments, Russ?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair. Susan, I think this is an excellent outline. I like the mission. I like the points that you put in here as well. And I think we'll have a lot of interest in the community being
I
a
do
part of
too.
this. I mean, I think the applications will be many of them. Number one, it's going to be
Mhm.
probably a tough job selecting
I
the
know.
first 7.
I've mentioned it to some people, and there definitely is interest, and I think this isn't highlighted as much here, but we have talked about offering this kind of opportunity as a way to, as an engagement opportunity, because we have so many people who are interested in
Right.
getting involved. So
Yeah, it's just another way for us to, have our residents engaged.
mhm.
Because so many of them don't get an opportunity to serve on committees and or commissions or whatever. So, because we have limited number of openings, but this is timely. I mean, environmental issues, and I like it. It's widespread, or you cast a wide net, no pun intended, basically, in regards to environmental issues. And I also like the idea of having a liaison, and I think I know who I would recommend if we get to that point. So
Yeah, so I don't know how you guys feel about keeping it flexible, so it's maybe just a member of council and not necessarily a member of this committee, or if you feel like it would be good to have that connection with Public Works.
Mhm.
Any,
I'm not sure if, you know, I can see it either way, Susan, on a member of council, but I do have a suggestion that I would like for you to consider.
Mhm.
And that is to pick up, maybe one high school and one college student
oh, yeah,
to be on the committee,
I like that.
you know, to
Mhm.
get them involved, to get them to work with their academic counselor about maybe some credit
That's
going
great.
towards, towards academic credit for their schoolwork.
I think that
Good
sounds
idea.
great. So,
And they all,
yeah.
you know, they bring a ton of energy. And so when
Mhm.
you need work done, they'll have a lot of people show up.
that's fantastic. I love that. And I
And
think you're
plus
right.
sorry to interrupt. Plus it'll just get them involved and they feel like they're part of the community.
Mhm.
I would think that they would like that,
Yes,
you know.
I totally wholeheartedly agree. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so in addition to 7 members who are on these terms, maybe we have 2 academic spots because a 3-year term would be difficult for them to commit to
Well,
anyway.
I
but
would
yeah,
definitely want them to have voting privileges.
with voting privileges. Okay,
Absolutely.
okay,
Full voting privileges.
okay.
But it almost would be like an internship for them. I mean, they're
Exactly.
doing,
Mhm.
you know, they're doing it for maybe 1 year
1
because they're
year,
moving on
yeah.
to something else, but, and they get to earn some extra credit, hopefully.
Right. Unfortunately, along with that will come along with it some sort of synopsis by somebody on the committee saying that this is not just a feather in your hat. You need to perform these duties,
Right.
you know, to be given credit or whatever,
Mhm.
just not a title.
Right, yeah,
You know.
I think that's great.
Okay.
But so should I make a motion then that we proceed with a recommendation to city council to, create this environmental advisory committee as outlined, but
Your council member, you can make any motion that you
Well,
like at
I
any
will-
time.
I will make that motion with the addition of a student, college and high school student
Yeah.
slots
Yeah.
that would be 1-year terms.
Right.
And also, I think maybe just having the flexibility to select a council member who's on any of the, from any of our members and not necessarily Public Works. It might fall out, so
Mhm.
it's usually Public Works, but
Okay, you're
Mm-hmm.
getting very specific. What would you like, Senator Nicole? That's what the motion is.
following this guideline with the change of allowing for any council member to serve as a liaison.
And the
And-
addition of the 2 students.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Are the island students? Well, I think
Yes.
if you went to Sullivan's Island, you probably get about 600 this afternoon.
I think they should be island students.
Islands, yeah, I
Right.
think so too.
Yeah. Or, well, definitely the high school, I think should be an island student. The college, that might be tougher because you might need to tap into College of Charleston.
Mhm.
And they may not,
You may not get any interest,
yeah,
but maybe you just include it and keep it specific. And
uh-huh,
maybe only just the first year, maybe only pick up a high school student.
mhm,
You know, you don't have to have 9 applicants the very first year. You may not,
mhm.
you know.
Yeah, if you had your core of 7 and then you only had 1
Right.
internship, I mean, to start with, then
So do
that
you
would be
want to make
okay.
it one student, a high school or a college student? Or one of each?
I like the idea of 2, but
I
if
like
you
that
can't,
too. If you
yeah.
don't feel it, you don't feel it,
right.
Okay,
you know?
all right, okay.
So
Um,
that's up to you. Do you have it, Nicole, or
I think I can work with that.
you think you can work with it?
Thank you.
Okay, I will second it, whatever you're working with.
All right, any other further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Hi,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Any
you.
against? Okay. Thank you. On to new business, discussion and consideration of RFP proposals for the installation of drainage infrastructure and grading to address draining issues at the intersection of 34th and Hartnett Boulevard. This is not.
Just by way of kind of an introduction to this, we have at that intersection, over the years generated several complaints from the adjacent owners. It put the problem on the Public Works radar. And they definitely acknowledge that during a lot of rain, there is a bowl there that is, it's basically 100 yards to a drainage system that way and 100 yards from a drainage system that way with no infrastructure in place. So there's really nowhere for it to go. We talked about different ways of approaching this, and they all kind of got to be very expensive when we talked about undergrounding new pipes to get to the corners of that intersection. It kind of got into the $100,000 range, which I think the staff felt like the magnitude of the problem didn't warrant that level of expense. So we worked a little bit to try to find something that we thought would take care of the problem and at the same time be cost effective and fit within the remainder of the Public Works drainage contingency that they have for this current year. Both of these roads, we kind of have the luxury, are city roads. So we did not need to have a lot of engineering. We don't have to have SCDOT encroachment permits. So it did simplify it a little bit for us. But of course, we always have a water line and a sewer line to contend with, which is the case here. So we came up with a proposal. We put it out to bid. We got a good response from bidders. We got somewhere maybe 6 different bids, pretty wide range of cost, ranging from, I think, about $19,000 up to maybe $50,000 or $60,000. The low bidder in this situation is True Luck Construction. Robert and I met with them today. They were actually kind of so low that it gave us a little bit of concern that maybe they missed something. We met with them. We've talked it over in the field. We met today, went over it in detail, and they're very comfortable with the project. They're confident that that at the price that they've given us, that they will solve the problem. So we, I think, are at a point that we would like to proceed with the project. We've gone a little bit back and forth on the magnitude of the problem. I mean, really, I think to kind of summarize it, we maybe have shin-high puddles, maybe 4 or 5 days on the shoulder of the road. The neighbors have let us know that it's a bus stop, so there are kids traversing the area frequently, and it is definitely a large standing body of water. But I think we feel like while there probably are worse problems on the island, we don't know that, we think this is a pretty good value for the repair and kind of see it as low hanging fruit. And if we could just get it dealt with, I think we'd like to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that area. In fact, I moved here in '84. I guess for a while we lived on 43rd, and then we moved into Forest Trail, and we had the drainage ditch that runs behind 34th, or
Yep.
down beside 34th. That was in our backyard, but this has been puddling like that for years. But it seems to have gotten worse, quite honestly, over the last several years. I don't know if it's because we've had increased frequency of heavy rains or
We
what.
think it's the repaving. That's kind of
Yeah.
the general consensus of the folks in that area is that when they, and they just overlaid it a couple of inches, but that couple of inches really seems to make a difference with the water not being able to get to where it used to get to.
Yeah, and it's heavily traveled, and of course, it's definitely a bus stop, and 34th, as we know, is really kind of the major gateway off of Palm to get into Forest Trail. So,
That's true.
I think I think this is definitely a project we ought to look at funding.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
that, I've mentioned this before, that stretch of block leading up that way on Hartnett, there's a little spigot that comes out of somebody's yard and puts
On
water out.
34th
It's
or on
always
Hartnett?
it's on Hartnett. And it's just around the corner from there. And I
Yes.
don't know if obviously that's a soggy area, but it's a constant stream whenever I ride my bike through there. It's
So,
always going.
yeah, so we've also noticed that, that house is, we think, so we considered taking the drainage project that way and eliminating, basically taking that water and eliminating the need for that spigot and that. But there were more complications. There was less right of way. And that house is, we think, about to be taken down and replaced.
Okay,
And at that time, we believe that there will be an opportunity to do another small project that would get that part of the bowl to go down
Okay.
Hartnett Boulevard.
Good.
So we've kind of got our eyes on that. We even talked with True Luck today about just putting a rock. Right now, it's sitting on the side of the road. They felt confident that just having a rock, basically a dry well that would connect the water and get it into the sand there would probably dissipate that puddle pretty quickly as well. But yeah, we've taken notice of that too.
thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that?
No, not for me.
Do you want to stick around for item B?
Yeah, so we're asking that you all consider that and if,
Oh, yeah.
and if, make a motion and let it, give us some direction there.
Okay, so you have a bid that you're pretty happy with,
Yes,
and that is bid is from what
True
company?
Luck, and it's 18, is it 18.8?
18,850.
Yeah,
Is there a
True Luck
motion to
Construction.
approve this? Is
I'll make that motion.
there a
I'll-
second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Yes, and just, part of that analysis was, is Donnie's budget going to be able to handle this project and keep that line item in check for the remainder of this year? And they're confident that they will. So that's
Super.
that's the part of the budget this would be paid out of.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Okay. Is item B is what we discussed on the phone, Rusty?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chair.
Okay, item B is discussion of potential solutions to drainage ditch erosion issues, and this is all over the island, and we have a couple of specific examples that someone raised their head. Do you have any comments from that you would like to pass along from citizens?
Well, I had an opportunity to visit with one of our residents who has had historic issues with the drainage ditch running behind her home. And, and the appearance that the ditch is always getting the silt down in that, it gets clogged. And it was, when you go out and look at it, I mean, it certainly is something to be concerned about. But I didn't realize we had such a, fairly widespread interest in this situation too. I know that Councilmember Smith just brought it up earlier. But there's a number of people that have been affected by some of the drainage ditches and the way they filled in. And I just thought it would be good if we got this on the agenda because it's been brought up and apparently there were historically other issues that have happened before my time on council where people have complained about the drainage ditch. And I think it's just good if we try to come up with what some potential solutions may be to the erosion issues we have. And maybe a little discussion about how, in the greater scheme of things, as this entire project gets done, what effect would that have on making the ditches themselves, operate much more efficiently too? So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a matter of scope and money, right, Donnie?
Certainly.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, as we go through the drainage master plan, this is going to be part of what's considered there, and having a broader overall strategy will certainly contribute to reduced erosion
We-
Go ahead.
I know people have brought up complaints before about losing trees as, the ditches widen and that kind of thing. And then I guess that just helps accelerate the problems. And so those are some of the concerns. But I mean, honestly, if you just regularly go through Forest Trail over time, they've expanded by feet and several feet, maybe doubled to, some of them are like rivers. almost. I hate to say that, but they're wide. They've obviously just grown with a lot with erosion. So I don't know what all the ramifications are with that or what you do about it to try
Well,
and
I
make
think-
them
I
manageable.
think city officials and administration have been aware of the problem for many years. As long as I've been hanging around, it's been a problem, but both your points are well made and well founded in that it just seems like it's accelerating. But it's a matter of scope and funds, just from my viewpoint.
Mr.
Any
Chair,
further
what,
comments? Yes,
yeah,
sir.
what might be some of the options we could discuss too? I mean, because I know that we can't, we're not going to sit here and say, okay, the city is going to go out and spend millions of dollars to get this fixed. I mean, it's really not something feasible to think about at this point. I understand the county has some control over this also. Is that correct?
So we're part of the MS4, correct, Douglas? And so that municipal stormwater sewer system, is that what the four S's stand for? Anyway, we're part of that. And so we do have, I don't know if we actually directly have access to the funding, but I can look into that to see if we can get some support from them on, restructuring these ditches or, solving this erosion problem.
Yeah, it would be good if we could look at that. I mean, just check in and see if there's something that we can access fund wise that would maybe be able to help some of these problematic areas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If we could, and it's, I know what I saw in the backyard that I was in. I mean, it was to the point that, it really is quite an issue. And the homeowner there really doesn't want to cut back the vegetation on the side of the ditches for fear that it's going to make it widen even more, and that's I guess their choice. I know we talked a little bit yesterday. I had an opportunity to speak with Douglas about this and also Robert. And we were talking a little bit about maybe the possibility of homeowners being able to build their own wall or bulkhead, I guess, in the backyard between their home and their lot and the drainage ditch. So I don't know, Douglas, if you wanted to address that at all at the microphone.
So I will just kind of say that we suspect that, these ditches kind of created their shape, their natural shape. And then we have started really with the Edie's contract, excavating out significant material on a pretty regular basis. And obviously, when you take that material out, new material is going to try to find its way to the bottom of that ditch. So we do think that when you're maintaining ditches, part of the kind of negative drawback to that is that they're deeper, water's flowing quicker through them, they're operating better, but at the same time, they're going to have the tendency to take that silt with them. It is definitely in the city's best interest and the county would agree, and the city feels like it's in everybody's best interest for those banks of those ditches to be stabilized as best that they can. Unfortunately, right now they're tidal, they're getting salt water in them. A lot of them are in the back of people's yards that are covered by trees. They're not getting light to get growth on the side of those ditches. So it is definitely a problem. We have been in discussions with, the staff here and with Thomas and Hutton about just kind of a policy going forward. And something that the city could do is treat these ditches, and we're doing it this way now, whereby if you want to do something on the side of a ditch within a drainage easement, you would apply for an encroachment permit. You basically would ask for permission. We would like to have just kind of a standard detail of what an owner could do that would lead to them stabilizing the side of that ditch. And that translates basically to riprap. So we're working on that now, where we would have something to take to owners who wanted to secure that wall of that ditch a little better than it is, where we could just say, here's the policy whereby you can armor the side of that ditch and stabilize it. Like I said, it's definitely in our interest to do that. It reduces long-term maintenance. You know, we don't want the yards silting into the ditches any more than they want the yards coming into the ditches. But again, we don't want to be in a situation where the city is paying to do that, because we couldn't afford to do it and do anything else in terms of drainage. So we think that would be the viable kind of long-range plan, is to just, as homeowners that live next to these things have problems, they would be given a method to affordably secure those ditches. And as Ron mentioned, this is something that is part of the scope of the long-range drainage master plan. We've asked them to look at every part of a development in terms of how that happens, what we're doing in terms of lot coverage, erosion control on the site, and make suggestions as to how we could improve that. So we will be getting professional guidance on this issue as well. But in the short term, we think just having a standard where an owner could deal with it is probably the best route forward.
What would be the timeline on that, Douglas?
We actually got a detail from Thomas and Hutton today. that we
Okay.
could, so I think within a matter of weeks, there should be a process where somebody goes in the field, they mark it in the field, kind of like an OCRM line of, hey, I want to put riprap, especially in situations where the ditch probably has eroded out. If they're going to get to a point where they want to put that ditch back where they think it should have been, we want to verify that before they do the work. So we need to come up with a little bit of a strategy as to how that works. But I think it would be marking it and then giving them the standards that they could just go ahead and add that riprap to the sides.
Okay, I for one would be interested in seeing that when you get that ready, and if we could pursue, I mean, looking into the county funds availability, if any, that would be good as well.
And we do, as you'll recall, a portion of that NPDES funds utility fee that you pay on your tax bill does go into a fund. It's currently about 400,000. We are planning, and I think we have budgeted to spend a big chunk of that we spend it down to only remain 25%, correct? So we're going to spend basically 300,000 of it in the outfalls and the project that we have now. That was kind of built into the budget for those projects that we were going to spend that money on those. So it's going to get depleted down a bit, but there's, it's a recurring fund that builds up as the as the tax bills get paid.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Well, I think that sounds like an intelligent way to move forward. So it sounds good to me. It does, I'm thinking too, in that area, at least in certain areas, the outfalls, if some of this is tidal, then the area is affected positively by the outfalls being fixed.
That's correct.
This will help that get better.
That's correct.
then.
We do think it's going to be a very different situation after that project happens. It's not going to be salt inundated. It's not going to have the twice a day flushing.
Mhm.
So we do suspect, and really it just needs to have vegetation grow on it. If it was just a nice grassy ditch, it would not be so problematic, but it's,
Okay.
it's right now it's just kind of a sandy channel that's getting eroded away.
So our belief is that once we get the outfalls completed, and I mean, the larger project, we should hopefully see some significant
Absolutely.
improvements in
Yeah,
those
we
ditches.
are hopeful that that project will take care of a big chunk of this.
Douglas, this is very informative, and I think it will create a lot of interest with people that are affected by this problem. And I would like to ask if you would consider next city council meeting come and giving us concise report because it's beyond my expertise, what you just said, and you have much more knowledge about it. And I think you have some very specific knowledge, if you wouldn't mind giving
Yeah.
us like a 5-minute
Yeah.
report. And I think people will be
Absolutely.
very interested in,
Yeah.
in knowing this.
And maybe, Councilman Streetman, I don't know if you want, we kind of have been working, we have a need to get kind of a policy. We want to be able to tell people about this sooner rather than later. I don't know if it was your desire that we come back to this group before we do that, which we could do, or we could plan on just doing it at the next council meeting.
I'll just go with, excuse me.
No, I'll defer to the chairman on that. No, I certainly don't
Just
mind. I
at this
think,
next meeting.
I think you can come back with the other plan you were talking about, but to the chair's
Yeah.
comment to update city council at the next meeting
Right.
as to what
We
the
would-
problem
We would
is.
really appreciate that,
Yeah,
I agree.
specifics. People are looking for specifics, very good. Thank
Okay.
you, Doug.
thank you.
So,
Donnie.
we're gonna
Donnie
talk to
has-
Donnie about item C, which is discussion of changes to the backyard service in Wild Dunes.
Before we get to that, on the previous subject, one thing that the county has advised me on years ago that residents can do immediately to help solve some of those issues we were just talking about. First thing you can do is you can gutter your house, specifically the 32nd Avenue garage and the residence that one of the residences we were just referencing. Put gutters on your house, and if you have a backyard with patios, all that sheet runoff is gonna run down to the lowest point. And when you get heavy rains, there's grass in your yard, but it's gonna take that soil with it. Grass will still be left there. So immediate results would be gutter your houses and redivert some of that sheet runoff off the top of your houses. So that's just a tidbit for residents.
You said gutter. No, gutter.
Gutter, yes. Okay,
Great idea. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, good tip.
Thanks.
and that came from some county folks
Okay,
many years ago.
very good.
Okay, on to the backyard service, and on the agenda, it's specific in Wild Dunes, but I would tell you that it's island-wide. There are residences throughout the island that has corrals that the Public Works Department has to service those corrals, whether there's garbage in them or not. And that's what's considered a backyard service. I would say, though, that 95% of the island's backyard service is within the gates of Wild Dunes. So historically, way back, there were single-family resident 90-gallon carts and 40-gallon carts in a lot of the condominium complexes and subdivisions within the gates. Many years ago, they were taken out of, portion of them were taken out of Mariners Walk, and I put commercial dumpsters in there. But I tried to continue this same level of service as long as the Public Works Department did not incur overtime. And as the island has grown taller, efficiencies in where houses years ago only had 1 or 2 cans, now they got 6 or 8 cans. So you have to determine, okay, now's the time to either we're going to spend a lot of overtime, and especially now that we're going to Bees Ferry, or we pull the single-family resident containers out of subdivisions, enough subdivisions so that I can be efficient in what I do. So the next step was, and I initiated this way back over a year ago now. Seagrove was my next condominium complex to remove the approximately 60 garbage cans that are housed in a little corral or enclosure. And my guys have to go in there and pull all 8 cans out of each of the 11 corrals, so there's 88 garbage cans. They're very difficult and very time consuming, and because most of them are for weekly rentals, a lot of these enclosures have become where the guests go in and they open the wooden door, they see green cans, but they're just throwing garbage on top of the green cans. And Seagrove was the worst one. So, and it's historically been up to the Public Works Director. I have the ability to remove those cans and install commercial dumpsters. So I brought it before this committee approximately a year ago, and we were to have it done and completed January 1. And so we moved forward with Ravenel to get started on finding a place for 2 enclosures. And I was going to put Carolina Waste dumpsters in there. They ran into a snag with property lines and the Wild Dunes Community Association. So we hit a snag. They hit a snag, and I was able to try to help them as much as I can. But I've put a deadline that May 21, I'm pulling the cans, whether the dumpsters are on the street or not, because Memorial Day is coming fast, and we're already now on Tuesdays not getting in with no lunch at 2:30, 2:45. And I'm having to hold garbage overnight here and take it Wednesday. So what that's doing is it's delaying my yard debris service by 4 hours, because we can't get back on the island Wednesday morning till 10:30, 11 o'clock to even get started with with yard debris and miscellaneous. So May 21, it will be the Seagrove, and that hopefully will help get me back to an efficient service for all island residents. I hope that's a little synopsis of what's
Sure.
going on.
Mr.
Anybody
Chair.
have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just,
Yeah.
I had a call today, or a text actually, with Councilmember Pounds, who was chair last year of Public Works, and this is one of the projects that we all three were working on last year. And he, living in Wild Dunes, he noticed today that they had begun work finally on the Seagrove's dumpster enclosure or whatever. So you're saying now we have a deadline of May the 21st?
Yeah, I'm going to pull those cans in May 21st.
Okay.
So I'll have Carolina Waste deliver 2 8-yard slants. The guests of Seagrove will then put their garbage in those 8-yard slants, whether they're in an enclosure or whether the dumpsters are just right beside the enclosure until they get completed.
And I guess going forward, I guess we can expect that there's going to be more issues as others come online that you're addressing with delays, or can we get ahead of that somehow? You said that there were delays that they ran into with.
Well, that was just
HOA.
specific to Seagrove because of a land issue and them trying to build on community property. But to your point, there are going to be issues because there are no 40-gallon cans being manufactured anymore. As you know, Grand Pavilion is housed, all of those 40 gallons in the little white picket fences. Those are all 40 gallons. When they're gone, those cans are 30 years old and they're getting in major disrepair. But when they go away, 90-gallon cans will be replaced, and 90-gallon cans cannot be put in those corrals. So they will have to be housed in those individual Grand Pavilion locations. And then, of course, they will have to pull them in and pull them out like most of the folks on the front beach side of Grand Pavilion do now. So there is going to be more or less of backyard service in the future.
Any further questions? Thank you for your report, Donnie. Appreciate it. Miscellaneous business is the next meeting date is 4:30 PM Wednesday, June 2nd. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.